part of my Legacy series, the Legacy series of Black music. And this is Black History Month. And tonight's piece is actually a mystery that's been solved. I got to thank Pete Nice, who is of the great third bass rap duo, who now is one of the lead curators at the Hip Hop Museum up in the Bronx. And so years ago, I encountered or became aware of DJ Hollywood. I wrote about it in my book, Hip Hop America. And I'm just going to read a little bit about what I wrote back then, and I'll tell you what mystery was solved. So at the time, I was an intern at the Amsterdam News, and it's 1978. I'm probably, at this point, 20 years old. And I used to, when I interned, around the corner on 125th Street was a Blimpies that was between the Apollo and Victoria. And I would get there. Blimpies, a lot of folks don't even remember what Blimpies is anymore, but it was basically a fast food sandwich spot, right? So I would get like a ham and cheese with tomatoes and lettuce, get a Coke, and just kind of stand in front of Blimpies and just watch the passing parade of 125th Street. And this really happened. I was ordering lunch when a teenager came strutting by with his ghetto blaster cranked to 10. It was a fairly typical urban experience at the time. Portable radio cassette players had been laying waste to the sanctity of public spaces for years by then. However, my man wasn't playing urban contemporary powerhouse BLS or jazzy RVR or Disco 92. He was playing a tape with a man talking very fast in rhyme. For years, I'd heard radio jocks like BLS's Frankie Crocker and RL's Gary Bird talk over a beat. But this was different. It had a fast cadence and the music was from another planet. I said, yo, who's that? Hollywood, he said over his shoulder, in a tone that clearly communicated how stupid could a guy get. So I went on the prowl. After a little investigating, I found out that homemade tapes like his were floating around the five boroughs, forming an underground musical economy way before the music found its way on vinyl. And so I went to a concert at City College, where on the bill were Harold Melvin the Blue Notes, Post Teddy Pendergrass, a really good self-contained band called Brainstorm, and Evelyn Champagne King. And Evelyn Champagne King plays a big role in my career because the first piece as a freelancing intern I wrote for Billboard was a profile of Evelyn King and her record Shame. So I get to the show, and I'm going to read a little bit more. On that evening in 78, I saw the passing of the torch from live R&B singers and bands to DJs, MCs, and a crate full of records. The veteran R&B groups were adequate, but just like me, most of the several thousand teens, filling this basketball gym at City College of New York, hadn't come to see Evelyn King or Brainstorm, they came to see Hollywood. With Lubbock Starsky cutting up the beats on the wheels of steel, Hollywood performed between R&B sets. And every time he did, he cold rocked the party, inciting Black and Latino kids in the audience to dance with great intensity. Hollywood didn't just lead the crowd to chant, he flowed into elaborate rhymes full of slang and syncopation like dip, dip, dab, so socialize, open up your ears and wiggle your behind. I could see from across the gym, because I was on the other side from where he was situated. He was a rotund young man with a beard, close-cut hair, and bountiful good time energy. His voice was large, commanding baritone, sort of a happy-go-lucky version of the strident, booming delivery you associate with Chuck D. And one thing that's really important, one of the songs they used that night was Earth, Wind & Fire's Brazilian Rhyme interlude from the album All in All. The original on the album was only like a minute and 30 seconds. Its chief feature, a melodic, wordless Philip Bailey vocal and a funky beat that came in about halfway through. The cut was so sweet I'd always wished it was longer. And that day it was cut longer, over and over. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. And every time they cranked up Brazilian Rhyme, the crowd at City College went crazy. And nothing that Harold Melvin the Blue Notes or Evelyn Champagne King or Brainstorm could do it. So that was my real introduction to the rhyming style that we associate with hip hop, the party chanting, but also the interaction. When he did dip, dip, dab, so socialize, open up your ears and wiggle your behind, he would pause and he would go, popcorn. And everyone in the crowd knew that. It was a really big moment for me, seeing this was something, and Hollywood was a star. And he's not as well remembered because he made a few records later, but as an attraction in New York City in 1977, 78, before the Rappers Delight record, he was one of the biggest party attractions in the city. And so the thing is, I'm really kind of well known for writing the first profile of Kool Herc, which was published in July of 78. But I never knew when exactly this other party was that I went to see. I knew it was 78, but I wasn't sure if I saw Herc first or Hollywood. And so Pete Nice hooked me up. This probably is not going to read very well, but you can see it says College Jam 78. And that's what I went to. It says College Jam 78, Friday, May 19th at City College campus. And it has Brainstorm and the Blue Notes. Linda Clifford was on the show, Evelyn Champagne King. And right there, DJ Hollywood of 371, which was a club in the Bronx he played at. And it says intermission sounds by New York's #1 disco DJ, Mr. Let's Rock and Roll, Let's Rock, Let's Roll. And so this was, really big because it now situates me going to see Hollywood and actually being introduced to some of the, like hearing Brazilian rhyme cut up, right? And it situates that so that was in May of 78. I saw Herc in a Taft High School in the Bronx schoolyard in June of 78 because the article that I wrote about him came out in July in the Amsterdam News. So essentially, my introduction to what we now call hip hop kind of happened. I mean, there were things I'd seen already and there were different parties, but the two pieces that I can say were this is a hip hop thing. The rhymes that Hollywood did, the interaction with the crowd, call and response, some of the records that he played like Brazilian Rhyme, that was in May 78. The next month is when I saw Herc in the Bronx. So my introduction to this culture that had been building and bubbling happened like within a 30-day period, which is kind of crazy to contemplate, but true. And so I think what's really remarkable about that is that I was surprised. I actually kind of knew that this wasn't, even though he's called a disco DJ, I knew this wasn't what I was seeing at the Black Club Leviticus downtown. Wasn't what I was seeing or hearing at Cedar 54 when I snuck in. It wasn't what I was seeing in other places. What was happening between the vocalizing and the rhyming and the interplay with the audience and the selection of records and the emphasis on these beats was a new thing. And for that period of my life, because I was at the Amsterdam News and I was at Billboard as an intern, I wrote quite a few articles about this thing. Rap records, rhyming records, mobile rapping DJs. And so I think it's crazy, for me, I'm in my mid 60s to think that these cultural practices, this folk expressions that I saw back, oh God, all those years ago, you fill in the blank, would be the foundation for an amazing culture. So I was just very fortunate to be in the streets of New York at that time and was able to find it. So my book, Hip Hop America, you can check it out for Black History Month. And just really glad and grateful to have been able to experience all this. Nelson George with a Black Black Music Moment and Black History Month moment, part of my Legacy series on YouTube. More to come.